I am deeply aware of this great inheritance and of the duties and heavy responsibilities of sovereignty.
The words fell like thunder through the ancient halls of Buckingham Palace. Effective immediately, Camilla Parker B.S. is no longer Queen of the United Kingdom. King Charles III stood before the nation, his voice measured, deliberate, each syllable cutting through centuries of royal protocol like a blade through silk. The chamber froze. Not a breath, not a whisper, just the weight of history being rewritten in real time. Prince William's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Beside him, Catherine's fingers found his hand beneath the table, her knuckles white with tension. In that silent exchange, they both knew everything had changed forever. But what could possibly drive a king who waited 70 years for his crown to issue such a devastating decree? What revelation, what betrayal, what unforgivable act had shattered the royal family from within? The answer lies buried beneath layers of palace intrigue, medical records, and one phone call that exposed everything. Before we dive into the scandal that's rocking the Commonwealth to its core, let me ask you something. Have you ever trusted someone completely only to discover they were orchestrating your downfall the entire time? That's exactly what happened behind those gilded palace doors. This isn't just another royal drama. This is about power, manipulation, and a queen who gambled everything and lost spectacularly. And here's what nobody's talking about. The evidence trail leads to not one but two sets of medical records, encrypted phone calls at midnight, and a conspiracy that reaches from Buckingham Palace all the way to California. Stay with me because what you're about to discover will completely change how you see the modern monarchy. And trust me, the truth is far more shocking than any headline could capture. The announcement. Let's go back to that moment. The moment that broke the internet and left the world speechless. The atmosphere inside Buckingham Palace was suffocating. Crimson velvet drapes absorbed every sound. Gold-trimmed portraits of monarchs past seemed to watch in judgment. This wasn't just another royal address. This was a reckoning. King Charles III, visibly weakened by his ongoing battle with cancer, approached the ancient oak lectern. The harsh television lights carved deep shadows across his face, revealing exhaustion that no amount of royal composure could hide. When he spoke about his deteriorating health, his voice remained steady. The voice of a man who'd spent a lifetime preparing for duty, even when that duty demanded the unthinkable. Then came the first bombshell. I am abdicating the throne. Cameras swiveled frantically. Journalists leaned forward, phones already buzzing with alerts sent to millions. Abdication in the British monarchy. That word alone carries the weight of crisis. It's what Edward VIII did for love. What marks the end of an era. But Charles wasn't finished. Not even close. His gaze shifted, hardening as it landed on Queen Camilla. She stood radiant in emerald green, the picture of regal composure, a woman who'd survived decades of public scrutiny and finally claimed her crown. She expected this to be William's moment, a ceremonial passing of power, her role, the dignified stepmother supporting the transition. What she didn't expect was what came next, the accusation. Queen Camilla is hereby stripped of all royal titles and privileges. The room seemed to tilt on its axis. Even William, a man trained from birth to control every facial expression, couldn't hide his shock. Catherine remained perfectly still, but her clasped hands betrayed the earthquake happening inside her mind. The justification devastating. Camilla was accused of falsifying the king's medical records, of manipulating his diagnosis, of attempting to seize control of the monarchy while her husband fought for his life. Watch Camilla's reaction in that archived footage, and you'll see something extraordinary. The precise moment a carefully constructed facade crumbles. Her silk handkerchief nearly slips from her fingers. Her eyes widen, not with fear, but with disbelief. She'd planned for everything, every contingency, every scenario, every potential threat except this one. Except being exposed by the man she thought she'd deceived. Think about that for a moment. Imagine the calculation, the cold precision required to alter your husband's medical records while he's battling cancer. What level of ambition drives someone to that point? The press conference dissolved into chaos. Journalists shouted questions over each other. Phones rang incessantly. The carefully orchestrated decorum of royal protocol shattered like fine china hitting marble. William and Catherine exited swiftly, their silence more powerful than any statement. They moved like people escaping a building on fire, because in many ways they were global reaction. Within minutes the world exploded. King abdicates, Queen betrayed, screamed across every screen in London, New York, Tokyo, Sydney. The story consumed every time zone, every platform, every conversation. But here's where it gets interesting. Public opinion fractured down the middle. Half the country praised Charles's courage. Finally, they said, a monarch who chooses justice over personal loyalty. A king who refuses to let ambition corrupt the crown, even when that ambition wears the face of love. The other half questioned everything. Was this really about justice, or was it a calculated power play? William's inner circle eliminating a rival, using Charles's illness as cover. The debate raged everywhere. Talk shows, podcasts, kitchen tables, university common rooms. Everyone had an opinion. Everyone chose a side. And through it all, one question echoed louder than the rest. What actually happened behind those closed doors? What could drive a man to destroy his own marriage on the world stage? What evidence could be so damning, so irrefutable that it left no room for mercy or second chances? The discovery. To understand that, we need to go back 7 days before the abdication, before the accusations, before everything unraveled. Sandringham Palace, a private royal retreat prized for its seclusion and tranquility. It's where the family goes to escape the cameras, the scrutiny, the endless performance of monarchy. It was Charles and Camilla's wedding anniversary. Despite the relentless pain from his illness, Charles had insisted on preparing a personal gift. A traditional brooch he'd chosen himself, nestled in dark green velvet. He wanted to present it personally, a quiet, romantic gesture for the woman he'd fought a lifetime to love. Picture him moving slowly through those corridors, a small lantern casting wavering light across ancestral portraits. He wasn't King Charles III in that moment. He was simply a husband seeking an intimate moment with his wife. Then he heard her voice. Normally, Camilla's tone carried warmth, that slightly husky quality that put people at ease. But this was different. Sharper, colder, commanding. She was on the phone. Protocol dictated he announce himself. But something, instinct dread, that sixth sense we develop when something's terribly wrong, held him frozen outside the carved oak door. What he heard next changed everything. I don't want it to sound critical, Harland, Camilla said, her voice as calm as someone discussing garden arrangements. I want it to sound more critical than it actually is. Just include the right phrasing, severe, exhaustion, indefinite rest required. That will persuade the council that the king needs prolonged recovery. Harland, Dr. Harland, Charles's personal physician, the man he trusted with his life, literally. And Camilla was instructing him to falsify medical records. Can you imagine that moment? The man you love is dying of cancer and you're standing outside a door listening to your wife orchestrate your political removal. Charles stood motionless, the velvet box growing heavy in his hands. But she wasn't done. The conspiracy deepens. Camilla immediately dialed another number. This time her voice carried barely contained excitement. The energy of someone nearing checkmate. Good. Then we move forward. I need the documents for changes within the Royal Committee prepared immediately. We can't allow those indecisive fools to obstruct us. Every word was a knife. This wasn't just medical manipulation. This was a coup carefully engineered, methodically planned, hidden beneath the appearance of wheelie concern. Charles's condition will force him to step back, she continued. During that period, I'll establish a temporary Regency Council to maintain stability. Translation: while Charles fought cancer in forced isolation, Camilla would rule the monarchy from the shadows. The anniversary gift slipped from Charles's fingers. The velvet box landed soundlessly on the Persian carpet, but to him, it echoed like shattering glass. Think about what that represents. Years of devotion, Decades of fighting for acceptance, a lifetime of choosing this. Woman over duty, over protocol, over his own mother's approval. All of it reduced to a prop in someone else's power play. Charles stepped back without a sound and returned to his chambers alone. The green velvet box remained where it fell, a mute symbol of sincerity betrayed. But here's what nobody knew at that moment. King Charles III wasn't broken. He was galvanized. The investigation. From that moment forward, Charles withdrew from public life completely. Officially, he cited strict medical rest. The press reported his worsening condition. Speculation swirled about his ability to continue reigning. But behind the facade of illness and isolation, Charles was conducting warfare. He understood that every move was watched not by distant enemies, but by those closest to him, likely reporting back to Camilla. So he moved with surgical precision, drawing on instincts honed during his Royal Navy service and lessons absorbed from watching Queen Elizabeth II rule with quiet, devastating effectiveness. His first move, the private library at Buckingham Palace, a serene chamber where generations of royal history lay archived and sealed. There he accessed confidential medical records, and what he found was explosive. 2 separate medical reports, both bearing his name, both dated to his most recent examination, both carrying Dr. Harlan's official stamp. But their contents couldn't have been more different. The first report, the original, discreetly obtained through a loyal nurse, described Charles' condition as stable, requiring observation, yes, but presenting no immediate danger to his life or his ability to rule. The second report circulated to the Royal Council and senior advisors painted a catastrophic picture. Severe decline, nervous exhaustion, recommendation for indefinite rest, and potential intervention. Charles placed both documents side by side beneath the lamp. The evidence was irrefutable. Camilla had manipulated his physician into creating false medical records. She'd manufactured a crisis to justify removing him from power. But evidence alone wasn't enough. Charles needed to understand the full scope of the conspiracy. Who else was involved? How deep did this go? Kate's discovery. And that's where Catherine, Princess of Wales, entered the story. Kate is meticulous, detail-oriented to a fault. While organizing palace correspondence related to medical care, routine administrative work, most people would find mind-numbing. She noticed something odd. A series of emails between Camilla and Dr. Harlan, sent at irregular hours, often late at night. The language was coded, vague, careful. Instead of discussing health, they referenced arrangements and schedules. One message stood out like a beacon. An email from Harlan to Camilla with an attachment labeled simply Plan B. Kate's instinct screamed danger. She'd always treated Camilla with respect. The woman had made Charles happy after all. But this went beyond family drama into something darker. Without hesitation, Kate brought everything to William. Now understand William's position here. He was already under crushing pressure. Worry for his father. Anxiety about his impending role. The weight of potentially becoming king far sooner than expected. When he read Kate's findings, his expression hardened line by line. William had respected his stepmother, believed she'd brought stability and genuine happiness to Charles's later years. But the evidence shattered that belief like a hammer through ice. From that moment, William and Kate became part of the investigation. 3 generations of the royal family, Charles, William, and Catherine, now worked in secret to expose the conspiracy unfolding within their own walls. The evidence mounts. William and Kate operated like intelligence agents. They used encrypted channels, avoided surveillance-heavy areas of Buckingham Palace, worked only with their most trusted staff, their target, Dr. Harlan. Through painstaking analysis of phone metadata and palace server logs, they uncovered something decisive. A recorded telephone conversation between Camilla and Harlan. When William played it back, he felt fury and disbelief surge through him. Camilla's voice, measured, calm, utterly unrepentant, instructing Harlan to inflate the king's medical condition, to use alarming terminology, deliberately designed to remove Charles from all official responsibilities. It was irrefutable, damning, devastating. They brought everything to Charles. The recording, the two contradictory reports, the email trail, every piece of evidence meticulously documented. Charles accepted the device with unsteady fingers and pressed play. Hearing his wife discuss him as an obstacle, as a problem to be managed rather than a person to be loved, carved something deep and permanent into his soul. But Charles is a monarch, and monarchs don't have the luxury of emotional collapse. Despite the pain, he made one final decision. He would give Camilla a chance to confess. Not out of mercy, not even out of love, but as a final ethical reckoning, a last attempt to salvage some fragment of dignity from the wreckage of their marriage. The confrontation. Their private meeting took place in a small drawing room. Just the two of them, and an oppressive silence. Camilla entered with practiced assurance. She'd sensed Charles's emotional distance recently, sure, but she believed her charm, her decades of experience navigating royal politics would protect her. A faint smile crossed her lips, an attempt to stir his sympathy. Charles didn't present the evidence immediately. Instead, he met her gaze with eyes carrying both the sorrow of a betrayed husband and the authority of a sovereign. Calmly, almost gently, he asked about her concern for his health, about her recent communications with Harland. And Camilla, she denied everything. With a soft sigh and carefully crafted sadness, she dismissed it all as misunderstanding. Her actions, she claimed, stemmed solely from fear for his well-being. She even redirected blame, suggested jealous courtiers had fabricated rumors to undermine her position, to fracture their marriage. Her bold denials, her complete absence of remorse, extinguished the final ember of hope within Charles. In that moment, he understood with absolute clarity there was no regret here, only strategy. When Camilla departed, still cloaked in the posture of an injured spouse, Charles knew his course was set. His personal anguish could not supersede his responsibility as king. He would not leave William a monarchy corroded by deception and conspiracy. The decision. Without delay, Charles summoned his private secretary. His decision was absolute. He would abdicate formally, transferring the crown to Prince William immediately. But more than that, Camilla's scheme and all supporting evidence would be presented in full before the royal council. Justice would not be hidden. It would be public, unmistakable. Seated at his ancient desk, Charles lifted his pen and began signing the new will, the abdication decree. Each document witnessing the end of an era. Every signature felt unbearably heavy. He also composed a final handwritten note to Camilla. Short, intimate, stripped of ceremony, a farewell that would never be sent but needed to be written. As he sealed that letter in a plain envelope, he was no longer just ending a reign. He was closing a chapter of his life that had defined him for decades. Think about that wait. 70 years waiting for the crown, finally achieving it, then surrendering it less than 2 years later, not because of illness, but because of betrayal. How many of us could make that choice? Duty over personal happiness, justice over love, the fallout. The days following the announcement transformed Britain. The coronation of King William V wasn't just a ceremony. It was a catharsis. Prince William, now king, stood on the historic palace balcony with an air of calm authority that belied the chaos of recent weeks. Beside him, Queen Catherine projected absolute faith in her husband, in their path, in the righteousness of their actions. The crowds weren't merely celebrating a new monarch. They were witnessing the restoration of integrity to an institution that had seemed on the verge of corruption. Media narrative shifted dramatically. Sensational headlines gave way to thoughtful commentary praising Charles's moral courage and William's resolve. The ordeal, painful as it was, had purified the monarchy. But while London erupted in celebration, another story unfolded almost entirely in silence. Camilla, officially divested of all royal titles, was instructed to leave Buckingham Palace. No ceremonial departure, no motorcade, no loyal staff, no words of farewell. She walked corridors where she'd once exercised authority, permitted to carry only a few personal items. As an unmarked vehicle quietly exited through the palace's rear gate, Camilla didn't look back. That expression, once proud, ambitious, defiant, was now hollow, emptied of emotion. Her destination, a remote manor in the southern countryside, surrounded by fields and woodland, isolated, forgotten. It was a sentence of solitude, silent, enduring, and heavier than any visible punishment. Charles's retreat. Meanwhile, former King Charles, prepared to step away from public life entirely. He withdrew to a private estate, dedicating himself to recovery and to the quiet he'd been denied his entire life. Distance from the capital brought unexpected peace. Though he'd surrendered both crown and companion, he'd regained something far more vital: clarity of conscience. In solitude, Charles began writing. Beyond formal documents, he crafted a deeply personal memoir, a record of the final chapter of his reign. Its pages traced everything: the discovery of betrayal, the secret investigation with William and Kate, the day he pronounced judgment before the royal council. In the closing passages, he reflected on destiny and choice, on the anguish of holding someone you love accountable, on the strange freedom found in placing duty above emotion. One particular passage stands out. Charles wrote about the sealed letter to Camilla, the one he never sent. It rested on his desk, a quiet remnant of a relationship defined by both devotion and conflict. He knew no words could fully express the depth of his disillusionment or the finality of their separation. In the final lines of his memoir, his handwriting steady and strong, he wrote, "Love can blind obscuring judgment for years. Justice never does. It demands clarity, absolute and unforgiving, even when that clarity destroys personal happiness." The broader conspiracy. But here's what most people missed in the chaos. Camilla's scheme wasn't the only conspiracy threatening the royal family. Remember, Meghan Markle? This story has tentacles reaching all the way to California. While Charles battled Camilla's betrayal, Catherine was fighting another war entirely. One involving falsified DNA tests, forged documents, and an attempt to undermine Prince George's legitimacy. The investigation uncovered a shocking trail: encrypted messages, underground facilities specializing in fake documents, financial transfers traced back to accounts linked to Meghan's personal secretary. Kate didn't just stumble onto this. She hunted it down with the same meticulous precision she'd applied to uncovering Camilla's emails. The fake DNA test designed to cast doubt on George's parentage was traced to a facility on London's outskirts. When confronted with transfer evidence and emails, the facility's director confessed everything. "I received orders from an intermediary," he testified, voice trembling, detailed design samples, money transferred through 3 layers of accounts. Kate presented all evidence at a closed meeting at Buckingham Palace. The fake reports, the transfers, order emails, confessions, technical analysis. "We cannot let this drag on," she said, her voice ringing with authority that silenced the room. The public press conference that followed was devastating. Kate stepped before cameras, calm but fierce, and systematically dismantled the conspiracy. New DNA results conducted at the Royal Laboratory under strict independent supervision confirmed blood relation between her and George at 99%. Undeniable. William stood beside his wife, his voice deep and warm. "Our family was attacked in a cowardly way. But truth always triumphs." Meghan's reckoning. In Montecito, Meghan watched the press conference live. Her face palled as each piece of evidence was announced. She turned off the TV and slumped in her chair, unable to speak. For months, she believed herself untouchable, an ocean away, protected by distance and careful intermediaries. She'd miscalculated catastrophically. That night, Meghan sat in her office deleting old messages, burning handwritten notes, but she knew it was too late. What had been sent could not be retrieved. Calls from lawyers arrived. Warning messages, all signaling a bigger storm forming. She thought of George, the boy she'd met. A few times innocent and adorable. A fleeting remorse passed through her, quickly drowned by worry for her own future. Harry entered the room worried, asking what was wrong. Meghan could only shake her head. The conspiracy she'd orchestrated from afar, believing herself insulated by geography and plausible deniability, had collapsed completely, and the consequences, they were just beginning. The new era. Back in Windsor, peace gradually returned. Kate sat beside George in the nursery, reading to him as usual. The boy laughed. Happily. No more confused questions. No more fear. Mommy will always protect you, she whispered. And in Kate's heart, she knew the battle wasn't over. But she'd won the turning point. King William's coronation ceremony unfolded with rare gravity. The crowd sensed they weren't just celebrating a new monarch. They were welcoming a renewed era defined by honesty, accountability, and restored trust. The monarchy had been tested, attacked from within by ambition, and from without by conspiracy. And it had survived, purified, strengthened, ready for whatever came next. Charles, watching from his private estate, felt a complex mixture of emotions. Pride in William, faith in Catherine, relief that the crown would pass to hands he trusted absolutely, and yes, grief for what he'd lost, reflection. As Charles closed his memoir manuscript, a solemn bell tolled in the distance, the deep resonance of palace chimes announcing another formal ceremony. It was the sound of continuity, of renewal. A new monarchy had taken root, one where hidden ambitions had been banished, where truth mattered more than power, where integrity defined the crown. Charles had made an impossible choice. He'd placed duty above personal feeling. He'd exposed betrayal even when it destroyed his own happiness. Some called it courage. Others called it cold calculation. But ask yourself this. What would you have done if you discovered your partner, the person you'd fought for, sacrificed for, waited decades to marry, was systematically betraying you while you fought for your life? What choice would you make? Would you protect the institution or protect the relationship? Charles chose the crown. Not because he loved power, but because he understood that some betrayals are too fundamental to overlook. And in doing so, he gave his son and his country a clean slate. The story of King Charles's abdication and Queen Camilla's downfall will be studied for generations. It's a reminder that even in the 21st century, even in an age of Instagram and Twitter, the monarchy still operates by ancient rules. Rules where betrayal carries consequences, where duty supersedes emotion, where justice remains absolute. 3 women were at the heart of this crisis. Camilla, who gambled for power and lost everything. Meghan, who conspired from afar and now faces reckoning, and Catherine, who fought with quiet ferocity to protect her family and won. 3 men were tested. Charles, who chose integrity over love. William, who accepted a crown he never expected so soon, and George, an innocent child caught in the crossfire of adult ambition? But here's the question I'll leave you with. Was King Charles's decision to abdicate and expose the truth the act of a monarch placing duty above personal feeling? Or was it a personal act of vengeance against his wife's betrayal? Justice or revenge? Duty or heartbreak? Courage or cruelty? The answer probably depends on where you stand, on whether you believe monarchs should be held to higher standards than ordinary people, on whether you think love should ever excuse betrayal. What do you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Was Charles right to expose Camilla publicly? Should he have handled it privately? Could their marriage have been saved? And what about Meghan's conspiracy? How far should accountability reach? If you found the story as gripping as I did, smash that like button, share this with someone who loves royal drama, and subscribe because trust me, this story isn't over yet. The repercussions are still unfolding, legal consequences are still pending, and the monarchy is entering uncharted territory. Thanks for watching, and remember, in the game of crowns, truth is the only weapon.